Well, hello there. I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com, and today I'm trying something a little bit different. I'm shooting this live on Facebook, and also this will be released a bit later on YouTube. I just have had this idea for a while, and I'll see if it works. Again, I kind of just want to always try new things, and this is what I encourage people to do as well. So I'm recording this on another camera plus this one right here. So hello. Part of the reason I'm doing this as a Facebook Live and not YouTube is because I have so many more subscribers on YouTube, and whenever I have a lot of like any kind of live video, something like this, I always get, it's almost too many comments to speak with people and try to remember what I'm talking about. So hopefully this will be interesting for you. And if you want to join me, Rita says, hello, nice to see you there. So I will be seeing some chats here, and I will also go and respond to comments I get on the YouTube version of this when I put it up. But if you like the idea, maybe I will do more. Hopefully my hand doesn't get a little bit too tired. You'll see my eyes also going back and forth between the two cameras, and also just talking about what's drawn up here. So hopefully you enjoy this. If you're new, especially if you have not seen me doing these live videos before, or if you just enjoy what I do anyway, do post a comment down below. Let me know where you're from. And as I'm going through what I'm going to be talking about today, Karim says, hello, nice to see you there. Again, I just wanted to try something new, and I'm just saying this kind of welcome bit as I'm getting people on here. Sadai says hello as well. Anyway, let's get into the show. People can go back and watch the replay of this if they're not able to see it right now. This is again the fun of the live video. Do I ever try live on Instagram? Marcella says. No, I do not. I've not tried live on Instagram. I'm sure there are lots of different things I could do, like live on various, even just going live on YouTube, which I have done before. But really, I just get like hundreds and hundreds of people all coming in asking me questions at the same time. So if you would like to be some of the people who are joining me on a live video, like this one, if I decide to do this again, then find me on Facebook. So go to facebook.com/EnglishAnyone, and hopefully you can join me and get to comment. Fam, nice to see you there. So looks at Northampton, UK. All right, well, there's a couple of people here, and hopefully we enjoy this. Again, we'll see how it goes. Again, with these two cameras here, this should be kind of interesting. But I want to talk about something. There's kind of three different things that people need in order to get fluent. And I want to talk about two of them in this video. So the first one is kind of like how you learn. And if you've followed me for a while, you know that I do things in a way that's quite different from what most people do, and I focus a lot on how you think. So I want to talk about that a lot in this video, or I guess these videos, since I'm doing both of these together. I need to get some kind of tripod or something for this so I can hold it here. I want to show exactly what I'm doing here on Facebook so people can see. Hopefully I don't cover up both videos with this. But as you can see here, I have a picture of a boat. Now, I'm not the best artist, so hopefully you understand what this is. But this is just a regular boat right here. It's a sailboat. It's a pretty big boat, I guess, for with the little sail there. We've got this green section here. This is the dock of this place where the boat is tied up. I haven't drawn the little lines here. I'm going to draw those in a moment. Then we have the water right here. So the boat is basically floating right here next to it. And for the purposes of this, like I'll go through this and then be checking comments now and then. If people have questions, I'll ask a lot more in a moment. But first I want to just give an overview of why I've drawn this and why it's important for you out there. Because this video was really about why you can know so much but still not get anywhere. So if you have a problem with that, like you know a lot of English, but you're still not communicating the way you want to, hopefully this video makes it very clear. And I just wanted to kind of show it in a different way to make sure that makes sense. Anyway, let's begin. So I've got my red marker here, and I'm going to draw these kind of usual little lines here that are tied up. If you've ever worked on a boat or ever seen where people are, maybe they're working on a boat, something like that. You got these lines that are tied up over here. I forget actually the name of these. I worked on a boat I even lived on a boat for a couple of months in Alaska, but I forget the name of these little like mooring. I think they're called mooring cleats, I think, if I remember that correctly. But when you think about the boat being tied up like this, when you want to move a regular boat, you just untie the little handles or whatever, the little lines on here. Forgive me if I'm not saying this correctly. But when you want to move forward, you just untie these lines, and then you slowly begin to move forward, and you can turn on your engine or use your sail or do whatever you want to do, and you're finally moving forward. But it's a little bit different when you're doing something like trying to get fluent. I'll move over here for a second if I'm not covering that up. Yeah, it looks like I'm going to cover that up a little bit. So what's happening here, you can think about these different lines here for learning English as just kind of the basic things you need in order to start learning the language. So this could be something like just like the language itself. So we got nouns and verbs and adjectives, other things like that. So as you start to learn more, you can cut this line here, you can remove this line, and so your boat can slowly begin to move forward. Now we can do other things like that. We've got your listening, maybe we got pronunciation over here, and these are just, again, other things that are required in order for you to move your boat forward. Now again, this means we're talking kind of generally, this is basically you here, but thinking about your ability to speak fluently, if that makes sense. Now, here's the tricky part. All of this stuff up here above the water makes sense. So when you want to move forward, so if you think about becoming a strong speaker, you have to learn all of these basic things about the language to communicate. And I don't want to talk really at all about kind of the way I teach, because this video is more important for what's actually stopping people from getting fluent. So it's not so much about how you learn, but understanding these basic things. Once you've removed all these, you should be able to move forward. So that's the basic idea of how you should be learning. But here's the problem. Now, a lot of people, and this is partly because of how they learned, but kind of they have like their own ideas about like how they should get fluent or how long it's going to take. What's really happening, what's really stopping people from getting fluent is that it's not just these lines that you have here connected to the mooring cleats. You've also got all these anchors down here, if you can imagine, almost like tied to a giant rock. So what happens is people are, again, learning all these different things. You've got nouns and verbs and adjectives and phrases and all the other things that you're learning. But when you finally start learning all those and you know a lot of them, but you're still not moving anywhere, you have to look at the stuff down here. And these are all the hidden things that you don't even realize are stopping you. And I call these really just the limiting beliefs that you have about learning. And it's really simple to understand these. All you have to think about is, I can't speak. And now you could be, I can't speak or I can't learn. It doesn't really matter what it is, but I can't speak, and then because. So what I wanted to do with the chat right now is just for anybody that's struggling out there, and again, I'll do the same thing for the comments on YouTube when people are watching there, but I want you to tell me why you think you can't speak. And we're going to go through some of these and try to cut these lines in the same way that we learned these over here. So if you're watching this video right now and you're still understanding a lot but not becoming a great speaker, it's usually because there's something down here that's blocking you. And for a lot of people, like, it could be because you're not living in an English-speaking country. Or it could be because you don't have enough time to learn. Or it could be because, I don't know, you just don't think you're the kind of person who can learn. So I'm actually curious to see, I'll go back and look at some of these comments right here as I return to that. But let me know in the chat right now, those of you watching this, if you have anything that you're struggling with. Even if you don't, it's okay. There are only a few people watching right now. But I'll go back and just kind of talk about a few of these things. But the basic idea here is that if you can find what these things are, and it's usually just I can't speak or I can't learn or I can't do something because, and that's really the thing that's stopping you down here. Because in every case I've found, when I'm talking to people who are trying to learn, and I've talked with people all over the world, I get mails from students every day all over the world, lots of comments from people as well on YouTube or Facebook or wherever. And everybody has, like, I can find a person who is getting fluent, who has like a particular problem, and someone who is not getting fluent that has that same problem or situation. So as an example, I might find someone who lives in Japan, where I live, and they're able to get fluent, but I also find somebody else in Japan who does not get fluent. Does that make sense? So when you're looking at the different things that are stopping you from becoming a confident speaker, these are the things really down here that are much more important than actually learning these nouns and verbs and adjectives and things like that. Does that make sense? I sent out a mail to my newsletter subscribers recently, and I was giving an example because I met a student, and again, I meet people almost every day, like just being living out here in Japan. I go out, if I'm especially with my family, I will be talking with somebody, and like somebody with their kids will introduce themselves to me, and they will say like, oh, like, you want to speak English, or can you practice with my children, or something like that. So I always get excited when I get to speak with people like this. But what's interesting is that you're going to meet lots of different people from like all over the place that are still in that same situation. So we got people in Japan that I meet. Some of them are really good speakers and some of them are not. And again, it's not about where you live in the same way that you can go to some city, any city in any country in the world. You're going to find rich people and you're going to find poor people. And it doesn't matter where you live. It's not like there's a certain city you need to live in order to become wealthy. And it's the same thing that you don't need to live in a certain place in order to become fluent. So this is one of the beliefs that people have about fluency that keeps them moving basically just here on the dock. So if you learn all of these nouns and verbs and adjectives, even if you have great pronunciation or like your listening is really good, you could potentially have all these things. But if you believe, I'm not in an English-speaking country, so I can't get fluent, you're going to be stuck right here, but not even wondering why you're not moving. Does this make sense? This is really important. So let me go back and look at some of these comments here. Let's see. Oh, Sadai says, I can't speak, but I can speak, but my writing is bad. That's an interesting question, or I guess an interesting comment. So some people, I mean, with your writing, it's a little bit easier for being able to speak. It's almost like a child that's learning the language for the first time. Like my daughter is not a good writer at all. She can kind of write the alphabet a little bit, but the important thing is that she knows how to speak. And so you can learn to develop any of these skills, but it begins by, again, first knowing that you've got the skill things that you have up here, but you also have the beliefs about what's possible. And these are the things that are, or they really can stop you from making improvement. Like I remember initially, I failed to learn 3 different languages before I even came to Japan. So in elementary school, I failed to learn Latin. I hated that. Then I failed to learn French in high school, and then I failed to learn Spanish in college. And when I thought, okay, I'm coming to Japan, finally I get to come out here. Now I'm living in a Japanese, like being in a country with a bunch of people living and speaking Japanese, that it should be easy, but it just wasn't the case. I still struggled to learn Japanese even when I came out here initially. So let me go back through some of these. Let's see. So Rita says, it could be lack of confidence or because of a bad educational system. Yeah, that's again, another one of these things down here. Again, it's a belief about something. Usually, like, some of them can be true in the sense that, like, you might have a school which is teaching you the traditional way. And again, I don't want to talk so much about how to learn in this video. This is really just understanding these 2 different ideas, and hopefully this makes it clear. But yes, you do sometimes have problems with the education system, and it can really cause just a lot of just difficulties in being able to learn, because mostly what the kind of traditional lessons are doing is they're teaching you a lot of this up here, but they make it really confusing and difficult, which actually creates more problems. So this is probably my biggest frustration with traditional language learning lessons, where they're teaching you these things up here, and they're doing it in such a bad way that you never become a great speaker. And so you think, well, language learning is difficult, it takes a long time, and only some people are able to do it. So it's a really frustrating thing that develops a lot of these beliefs. So what you have to realize is when you might have gone to maybe some kind of school where you're learning English. I'm sure most of the people watching these videos that I make, they learned English the traditional way in schools, and now they're having to teach themselves. But I don't want you to take those same beliefs that you had. So if maybe you learned that English is difficult, or it takes a long time, or only a few smart kids can do it in my class, don't keep those beliefs as you learn by yourself. So right now you have the ability to change the way you think. You can change your beliefs down here so that you can finally get moving and finally go where you want to go. All right, let's see if we got some more comments here. Sometimes the speaker's afraid of making mistakes when talking with others. So that's another thing, again, another belief that people will care so much about any mistakes you might make when you're speaking. Now, sometimes people do, but sometimes people don't. And for me, when I'm speaking Japanese, sometimes even in conversations today, I will still make mistakes. It happens sometimes. But if you think about the way natives communicate also, natives make mistakes in conversations all the time, or they don't quite know what they want to say, and because most people are not professional speakers and they don't get trained to just speak clearly and continuously all the time, a lot of times people have trouble expressing themselves. So it's not something that's like only for non-native speakers or people who are learning English or some other language that people would have a problem with that. It's really something that anybody can experience. So again, if you think about like the mistakes I make are stopping me from speaking, what you have to realize is that kind of to remove this, to finally cut this line right here, is there a way of thinking or like a story I could tell myself or a way of changing that belief such that it's not true? So as an example, I've told this story on my YouTube channel before about people who play video games and they are speed running these games. Now, speed running just means you try to go through the video game as fast as possible, and you might not do everything, but the point is to get from the start to the end very quickly. And what you notice in these games, and this is just one example of this, but people will intentionally get hit by an enemy because sometimes, like when a character gets hit in a video game, they bounce back a little bit. But if they kind of turn themselves, they can get hit and actually bounce themselves forward to something else. So this is just a very simple idea of a time when a mistake is actually beneficial. And for most times when you're communicating, it's much better to just go in and communicate, say what you want to say, even if you're not going to express it perfectly. And because you do that, you actually improve. So you learn a lot from the situation, and you don't focus on the mistake so much as continuing to just express your ideas and hopefully share more about, you know, the thing you're talking about rather than the individual mistake you might make. So I've been talking with people, often it's their confidence much more than the way they speak that just makes me relax as a person listening to them, especially Japanese speakers here, the people I speak with. If they are really feeling nervous about speaking, even if they're Japanese or even if their English is good, I notice that a lot more. But the people who don't speak quite as well, but they feel more confident, that's something that I'm really impressed by. So think about that. And again, if you have a belief that I can't speak because I make mistakes, think about the opposite. So how is that not true? And that's going to help you cut this line and move another step closer to really just, again, if you can cut all of these different things, if you can change the various beliefs that you have that stop you from getting fluent, these will be the things that finally get you moving. Does that make sense? Let me know. So if you're watching this on Facebook right now, click the little like button or the little heart button. So just let me know that you understand what I'm saying and this makes sense. And if you have questions, you can post them down below. So let's see. Ayu says, though nothing's stopping me except myself, I need credibility to make my self-confidence in speaking English. Ayu, let me know what you mean by that. What do you mean you need credibility to make self-confidence in speaking? Now, I often tell people, man, it is hot in here. I can't have the air conditioning on in this studio because it makes too much noise. So anyway, hopefully I'm working hard for you guys out there, for you all, for you guys. Anyway, if you think you need to wait for something, like you're not confident enough to do something, usually it's just your own ideas about you're feeling nervous about sharing something you know or something you want to say. But the truth is you have value even in a conversation if you're just listening to people. So if you're nervous about getting into a conversation because you need like to know enough about a certain topic, or you don't have, like you're talking about, you hear credentials or some kind of knowledge or something like that, get into the conversation even just by listening, because that's valuable to the other person. And as you get into more conversations, I did the same thing when I was starting to learn more Japanese, and I would stand in conversations and really just try to listen. And I didn't even understand everything that people were saying, but people usually tried to communicate well, and slowly I became more confident about speaking. But again, usually it's by taking that step that's going to make you much more confident about speaking, and that will hopefully take you to the next level in your communication skills as well. So let's see. I can understand, but I can't speak very well, says Dale Lita. And let me know if I'm not pronouncing anyone's name correctly here. But the basic idea here, if you say like you can understand people, but or you can understand but you can't speak very well, it's usually an imbalance of practice. So it's really easy to practice your listening because you don't need anyone there to do anything, and you don't need to practice speaking yourself in order to develop that skill. But I make a video, actually I made a video on YouTube about why you understand but can't speak. You can find that on YouTube as well. And that was talking a lot more about the way people learn that can be really frustrating and actually stop people from communicating. But again, this idea here about when you think about why you can't speak very well, this idea here even is like incredibly important. When you see here, like if you say like, I can't speak, like that idea saying you can't speak, it's just not true. Now, usually you can speak a little bit, or you can say a few words and phrases or sentences or something like that. But the point is, like when you say like, I can't speak, it's actually not true. And saying that to yourself, it actually stops your mind from wanting to communicate. So in my case, and this is like, I'll just share with you right now the biggest secret about fluency. A lot of learners believe, this is like, and again, it's about what people believe, not so much about the actual skills. And again, it's not like, I'll talk kind of later, maybe in another video about how people learn, but it's this idea of the language things that you need and then the beliefs you have about learning that actually let you go where you want to go. So you have to make sure you're controlling both of these things. You're learning the parts of the language, improving your skills, but you also watch your beliefs as well. So here's like the number one truth, the number one secret about fluency. Now, what usually happens, a lot of learners, and let me know if this is you in the comments down below, but people will start learning the language. Maybe they're kind of like in school, and they're just like learning and learning and learning and learning and learning for years, and they're hoping that they reach fluency at some point. Now, hopefully that like comes in over there. Make sure I didn't like draw that too high or whatever. Yeah, it's pretty good. Basically, like we'll kind of draw it down here too. So they start here. They're learning and learning and learning and learning and learning, and they're hoping that they reach fluency at some point. But what's really happening is that you don't actually like reach fluency after learning for a bunch of years. What you really do is you develop fluency kind of one word at a time. So depending on how you learn, if you're in a classroom and you're learning to translate something, so if I'm going to teach you a word in Japanese, so if you know English and I'm trying to teach you Japanese the traditional way, I would say, here's a piece of paper, and then I would say kami. So that's the Japanese word for paper. Now, if I teach it to you that way, I'm not helping you learn that word fluently. But the way I teach it to my own daughter, I would just say kami and show her like an actual piece of paper. So no translation is required, and this is actually what helps you become a fluent speaker each step of the way. So what's really happening, the way natives get fluent, is they're getting fluent word by word or phrase by phrase. Does that make sense? This is incredibly important, and it's something that students, because they don't learn this way, they really think, okay, if I keep learning, I'm going to keep learning and learning and learning, and hopefully I'm going to reach fluency after all that. So this is why people will study for years and years and years, but never actually become fluent speakers. Does this make sense? So let me know in the comments if this is like click that like button if you understand what I'm saying, if this is resonating, if this makes sense with you, if you have kind of been part of that, this kind of way of learning where you're kind of hoping that you finally become fluent after you know enough. Now, especially when I talk with learners, and one of the comments they'll say to me is, I don't know enough yet to have conversations. So again, this is one of those ideas that I'm limiting myself. It's a limiting belief that I don't know enough, so I can't speak. But remember, when you look at little kids, like my daughter, Aria, who's 4 years old now, and I have a second daughter, Noelle, who is only about 8 months old now. She's not speaking yet, but she kind of understands what we're saying, and she'll say rah or something like that. But the idea here is that Noelle and Aria, they get fluent word by word. So they learn to use each individual word fluently, and that's why when you put them all together, they become fluent. Does that make sense? So what people are doing in a traditional classroom is they are not learning each thing fluently, they're just learning more information. And this is why people will be they'll just be in a classroom for years and studying and studying and studying and wondering why they're not getting fluent. And that's because fluency is not something you reach after studying a bunch of time. It's something you learn to speak each individual thing fluently. Does that make sense? Really, this is such an important thing. And when I discovered this for myself for learning Japanese, it changed everything for me. And hopefully there's, however many people end up watching this video, it's such an important idea, but it will change your life if you think about how to learn. Now, I already spend lots of videos talking about how exactly to learn and the different way you should be learning to achieve this. But the basic idea is that you get fluent word by word. If someone says to you hello and you automatically respond back to them with hello, you're saying hello fluently. Does that make sense? So it's not about you having to study it a bunch. It's just, do you react? Do you respond automatically without hesitating and thinking and translating? And when you're doing that, you're communicating fluently. So fluent does not mean that you know a bunch of words, and we know that's true because children can communicate without hesitating, even though they have a limited vocabulary. Does all this make sense? I keep asking this over and over again, but it's so important. I really want to make sure everybody understands this because it's really the most important thing about getting fluent. And it goes back to the same idea about the beliefs that you have about how you learn. All right, let me look at a couple more of these responses over here so I can understand, but I can't speak well. Okay, so hopefully, yes. So hopefully we're thinking a bit more clearly about that now. Be specific about what you're thinking about when you say, I can't speak. Because what you really mean, you don't mean I can speak. You mean, I don't know how to say this one word or phrase or something like that as well as I'd like. So if you use it like that and then you think, how can I learn that? How can I become better at speaking? How can I become better at using certain things? That's going to open your mind up. It's going to delete or remove these limiting beliefs and let you kind of start sailing and really start getting out and speaking with the world. That's what I want you to do. I want you to go out and have great conversations with people all over the place. And if you do that, if you remove these limiting beliefs here, this stuff becomes really easy. So if you think you can do it and you start learning about how you can do it, all this becomes easy. All right, let's see here. We got Dem from the Philippines says, thanks, my pleasure. Chari says, I'm good in writing English, but not verbal. Yes, and this is another thing. Usually people are good at one particular skill, like they're good at listening or they're good at writing. And these are typically because you're learning these skills in the classroom. So what you practice, you become better at. But you have to open your mind to learning the right way. If you learn trying to learn writing is really learning the traditional way in school. And so it makes it a bit more difficult for people to improve when if you're just using writing, that's fine. But if you have to also speak, you have to change the way that you learn so that you communicate rather than just trying to repeat the things that you learn in your classrooms. Hopefully all this makes sense. But this is, again, this stuff over here, you're just really not going to hear that. I don't know of any classroom that teaches any of this stuff. And it's really so important. I mean, actually, pretty much every English classroom, and a lot of actually the videos you'll find on YouTube are really just teaching you more of this. So it's giving you more words, more phrases, and just more stuff that's actually not, and you know it's not working because you're not getting more fluent. So I know lots of students, they write me, they say, I'm watching all these YouTube videos and it's not actually helping me learn. And it's because they're focusing on this stuff up here, and all these things that just give you more information, they're just giving you, they're actually creating more of these limiting beliefs because they make you think that fluency is actually difficult when it's really not. You can actually get fluent instantly, and you're getting fluent about a particular thing, or you're learning to say a word or phrase fluently. That's what it really means. And so if you expand that, you keep learning all these individual things up here, like this word or this phrase, and you start putting these things all together, and that's how you communicate and have great conversations. Does that make sense? All right, I'm getting crazy hot over here, but if you enjoy this video and you'd like to learn more about this, I created a program called the 68 Fluency Secrets. It goes into a lot more detail about this kind of stuff. I asked thousands of my students, what can I do to help them become much more confident speakers? What are the problems they're struggling with? And I got literally thousands of responses from people, but it was actually just 68 different questions that were asked in different ways. So I went back and answered that in a very simple audio program. And a lot of that is talking about better ways to learn these things up here, but I spend also a lot of time talking about reversing the limiting beliefs. So showing people how things are possible, and it really becomes very simple to get fluent once you understand both of these pieces. So it's not just this information up here, it's also the beliefs you have about learning. All right, I'm getting crazy tired, but thank you for all the thumbs up for people that are enjoying this over here. If you do want to learn more about that program, just click on the link in this video. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be in the upper right or in the description. And if you're watching this on Facebook, it'll just be right in this post as well. Well, that'll be it for me today. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. If you did, oh, Sherry, nice to see you there watching from Philippines. But anyway, hopefully you guys enjoy this. If you do, let me know if I should make more of these and just talk more about the kind of different and interesting things that maybe you haven't really thought about before. Anyway, do like and share as usual. Let other people know if you also see them struggling. Maybe they're complaining about learning a lot but not getting more fluent. But hopefully you all enjoy this. And again, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. So do click on the link in the description, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.